And here we go. I'm hoping this is working because I have no idea if it is or not. Welcome, everybody. I apologize if you see some lower quality or if there's some issues with frames and stuff like that. It's just because I've had to scramble in the last minute to fix some things. But so I apologize on that one. But welcome to the Captain's Table. My name is Paul, Berserker 01 Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the Astropub, and your moderator here at the Captain's Table. This is where I bring people from all over the Star Citizen universe to talk about Star Citizen most of the time. So let's get starting with audio levels may need a touch. Okay, we'll do a quick audio. Nick, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
Hey, it's Nick. You can find me at twitch.tv/HeyItsNick or Twitterverse, or even if you just probably go to any streamers, I'm probably playing with them. So I'm kind of all over the community and spread throughout and sprinkled.
Awesome. And a new face, Drew Wager. Did I say right?
Yeah, you got it right. Well done.
Right. Okay. Drew Wager, who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
Okay, so primarily I am a science fiction and a fantasy author. That's my kind of day job. And I've recently started playing Star Citizen in the last couple of months. Been very impressed. And you can find me online with pretty much any social anything.com/Drew Wager. It's the easiest way to find me. I'm not very imaginative when it comes to internet handles, I'm afraid.
Awesome. All right, let's get started with Drew, because this was originally going to be a little bit different, but we had some. This has been nothing but technical issues the day for me, and also other things going wrong. So the gremlins have gotten into everything, and I am now trying to figure out how to fix it. So I apologize if things go a little awry or if things seem a little off, but this is how it is. Drew,
just like a gremlin off my boot.
Yeah. Can you restart your video, Nick? Because it seems like you're desynced a little bit.
Oh yeah, I can restart. Is that better?
Fixed. No, it's not. But we'll just live with it. So I apologize if you're having if you hear the audio is off desynced and that kind of stuff. It used to be worse. Trust me, this one. So Drew, people ask me to bring you on for many different reasons, and I've been looking for a reason to get you on and an excuse, and so I finally was able to get you on, and I wanted to like talk with you about stuff. But let's talk a little bit about who you are in terms of your profession outside of just streaming and doing content creation as well.
Okay, so I guess I've been a writer kind of professionally since about 2006. That's when I published my first novel. I was doing sort of not particularly great fan fiction and stuff before that, kind of in my teenage years and all kind of things, as you do, because you huge science fiction fan and stuff ever since I was yay hydro grasshopper. But so writing is kind of my thing. Always been a huge science fiction fan ever since I can remember. Kind of grew up with Arthur C. Clarke and Jules Verne, all those kind of things. And then as computers have basically just got better, the computer games that surrounded them have been a massive source of inspiration and also kind of escapism for that. A lot of people will know me through the stuff that I did with Elite, of course. And that is mostly down to the fact I was a big fan of the original game, which came out in 1984. Played it as a teenager. Made a big impression on me. I played, the Wing Commander series in the 90s. Again, absolutely enjoyed those. And then when Elite came back in as a Kickstarter, which I think was pretty much at the same time as the Star Citizen ones, I recall.
Yeah.
I got involved with the game at that point. And the reason for my involvement really was because I pinged a slightly cheeky email to David Braben, who's the CEO of Frontier Development, saying, "Oh, you've got a new game coming out. Is there any chance to audition for a novel?" Because the old games came with novels, well, the new one. I didn't immediately get a response to that, but almost straight away the following day on their Kickstarter suddenly appeared this pledge award for write your own novel, but it's going to cost you £4,500. And I didn't, I didn't have £4,500, and this is UK pounds, okay, so it's probably even more in dollars. I didn't have £4,500 around, just sort of lying around speculatively. So one of my friends suggested, why don't you start a Kickstarter of your own to fund the other Kickstarter's pledge? And so it got a bit crazy for a while, but it did actually work. So I ran a successful Kickstarter, which was only aiming to get a pledge for another Kickstarter. That worked. It snowballed a little bit from there, and then suddenly the Elite Kickstarter was successful, my Kickstarter was successful, and I was writing an official novel for the game. So it was a bit strange, but that's how it basically kicked off.
Nice. And what's the name of that novel for anybody who wants to check it out themselves?
That's called Elite Reclamation. You can find it kind of, well, actually it's still in the Frontier store, I think. I think you can get it through Amazon and various other places as well. It's fairly widespread by now.
Nice. Now, you're working with Elite. Was that the only thing you did, or do you work with anything else with the Frontier guys, or?
It was just Elite, yeah.
Just Elite.
Yeah. I mean, Elite's probably the only game that they have in their catalog, if you like, that's kind of got a lore stroke narrative focus. Most of the others are sort of simulation park management type games, so they don't really have a story as such.
Did you just do the novel, or did you help them out with any other kind of the narrative stuff they were doing with any of the releases?
No, I wrote quite a few of the early missions in the game. So there's one particular one that I was quite proud of, where you have to smuggle some slightly dodgy green plants around the universe. Various other bits and pieces like that, and I did organise a series of events in the game as well. With various different kind of things. Introduce some characters in there, and quite a few of the star systems and some of the description behind the star systems and some of the background to those star systems, i.e., events that happened. I wrote some of that, and that got inserted into the game as well. So there's a whole bunch of. They basically call them tourist beacons now. They weren't originally called tourist beacons. They were sort of POIs, but now they're slightly historical. So they've almost been turned into places you can go and visit and read about what happened back in the day. Nice.
Just overall your experience with Elite, because I've heard like nothing but glowing like when people realize you're doing Star Citizen, I can't tell you how many people, because many people who watch this, and I think you know, is that I do lore stuff. I do a lot of lore stuff with Star Citizen. Not as an official capacity, it's just as a fan sort of thing. And everyone's like, you need to bring Drew onto the captain's table and talk about lore and all these sorts of things. But just as a curious thing, because maybe people may not know this, what was the process? What's the process upon which you wrote some of these missions? Or any of these kind of events? Did they come to you and say, hey, Drew, we've got X number of missions that, this is the whole thing. Can you please write the lore behind it? Or was it like you came up with the missions and they were like, cool. And then they kind of went off and kind of made it themselves. What was that process like?
So early on, the when the game was being composed back in, I think it was 2012. So we basically were asked to write the first series of books in advance of the game launching, so the books were ready to kind of go the moment the game was kind of available as a retail product. So in the year of sort of 18 months prior to the game launching, and basically in its major development phase for the kind of version 1, there was a bunch of lore guides that were put together by various people, which covered the political entities, the technology, the kind of galactic police, some of the aliens, and various other bits and pieces, how the ships worked and the sort of technology that was involved and the kind of weapons that they could use, all that kind of stuff, the background lore, basically. Now, that stuff was never made public, but the writers had access to it. And, we argue back and forth about a few things, because there's one particular bit I really don't like about the Elite lore, which was that they don't allow anti-gravity.
Yeah.
Which is really awkward. But yeah, that aside, there was a few things that we did get to change. One of the big ones was Elite was originally going to use something called micro jumping, which is basically, you'd be able to jump around solar systems to particular kind of points of interest in the solar systems. And the kind of consensus there was actually, no, we don't like that. That's not really how Elite works. You want to travel there. And so we ended up with this concept called Super Cruise and the Frameshift Drive, which was an outcome of of some of that early lore work. So there was a lot of kind of toing and froing. Now, Frontier always had the kind of, yes, okay, we've heard you, but we're going to do this. So they always had the ultimate sign off on things. So feedback was taken, but it wasn't. It was never much a case of we forced anything through. That never happened. It was always, no, thank you for the suggestion. We might take that on board, and sometimes they did, but most of the time they didn't. They had a pretty clear idea of what they were trying to do. But once that had sort of been established, we were able to base our stories on it. And then they basically came back to us and said, stuff from your stories, we want to include in the game. Have you got kind of ideas for that? And I wanted a sort of mysterious boundary in space beyond which, there were tales of, spaceships that had gone out there and hadn't come back, and kind of mystery stuff that would entice players to go out and explore and hopefully run into trouble, that kind of stuff. And so I embedded themes of that in my first book. And then Frontier were able to put aspects of that in the game and develop it over time. So there was a bit of toing and froing between the original set of books, which kind of gave clues that there might be something in the game for you to go and look at. And then the game would then respond with little clues and stuff to go and find, which you could then follow up later on in the books. So it kind of went in both directions. It was quite good fun.
Nice. So like that sounds kind of awesome. Like what you're telling me is that you and the writing team created Frameshift Drives, which is pretty much
so there was a group inside Elite called the DDF, which originally stood for the Design Decision Forum, and then was slightly changed to the Design Discussion Forum. which I think was just to kind of clarify things a bit. So in combination with them and a lot of the writers' feedback about how does this work, where does this planet come from, what's the backstory to this planet, all those sort of things. Those were all sort of things that were included in. So the Frameshift Drive is one that jumps out to me as a major change to the game that the writing community and this Design Decision Forum that were basically very high level pledges on the original Kickstarter were able to basically say, no, actually, Frontier, you really need to do it this way because that's going to be more elite than the proposal you've got. And it just jumps out as one of those things that actually did get changed as a result of all the feedback.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's. I'm thinking like the Frameshift Drive is iconic in the Elite Dangerous community now because the Friendship Drive
everywhere. Everywhere throughout the game you hear
French. And also
Friendship Drive charging.
Friendship Drive is charging. Friendship Drive charging. Yeah. And as a former, as a beta backer for Elite myself back in the day with that whole thing, I remember many times being nearly destroyed and being like hearing Friendship Drive charging, and then like, no, you don't have, you have too much power in your weapons or your shields. I'm like, you hit the buttons, they can go away.
Get moving. That's right. Yeah.
So in my brain, Frameshift Drive is up there with like things are exploding and everything's on fire and it's Frameshift Drive charging. I'm desperately pushing buttons. So that's
you got this very laid back lady's voice basically saying your Frameshift Drive is charging.
Yeah,
I'm getting shot at. I need to get away from here. Stop charging and go.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Well,
there were a lot of discussions about the name for that actually, because particularly early on, one of the main executive developer the executive producer for Elite, it was a chap by the name of Michael Brooks, who still works at Frontier, but he's not involved with Elite now. And he was very, very keen on strong scientific accuracy, or at least plausible scientific accuracy for the game. So he wanted to differentiate it from kind of warp drive and impulse drive and hyperspace as sort of generic ways of traveling through space and come up with something slightly different. So frame shifting is kind of the idea that your spaceship is locked inside some sort of inertial reference point, which is then being moved through space so that your local frame of reference doesn't experience inertia, is kind of where the frame shift drive comes from, if that makes sense.
You're shifting the frame of space to another location.
Exactly. Yeah. So inside the frame shift envelope or whatever it is, your ship doesn't experience acceleration, which is why you don't get splatted on the back of the canopy as you're accelerating.
Which is why you can go beyond light speed with frame shift because it's moving. It's more of a build up. That's pretty cool. Yeah. You said you write other novels. What have any of your novels taken? Because you obviously have been playing games since you were a teenager. Is there any of your other novels taking I don't know how to say it. It's not taken inspiration, I guess. Inspiration
Yeah,
from
so
your time in the gaming.
Absolutely has. Actually, oddly enough, I was my major gaming actually, I suppose, took place in my teenage years, and I was the age I am. Some of the older viewers will probably remember computers like the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum, and so I was a ZX Spectrum guy, and there were two really cool games on the ZX Spectrum. One of which was Elite, and the other one was a game called Lords of Midnight, which is a sort of RPG type game.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been fortunate enough to work with the IP holders of that series as well to novelize those. Now they're completely different. They're not in the space genre at all, but they're kind of a pure fantasy series. So I've got 4 books to do. I've done 2 of them. I released the last one at the end of last year. So that's a nice change because it's total fantasy. It's all magic and spells and dark wizards and all that sort of stuff. So I do get to play with different genres, which is good. But yeah, so that's another one that's another set of game novelizations that I'm involved in.
Nice. Now, let's get to the bread and butter about Star Citizen, because I am interested in hearing your story, your experience with Star Citizen. I know you played Wing Commander. Did you play Freelancer when that first came out, or Privateer, or any of those games?
Freelancer is one of those games that I bought at the time, and I've still got the disc, and I dare I say it, I haven't played it.
Played it?
I've got it actually. I've never got round to it. So it is on my list. I'm currently running a kind of streaming session on Saturday mornings where I do a retro playthrough. We're currently in the middle of Wing Commander 4, and I do intend to get to Freelancer, but it's not a game I played yet. No.
Okay. Did you play Privateer when that came out?
No, I missed that one as well.
Too.
That's
okay.
on my list. It was literally the Wing Commander series that I remember most of. Yeah.
So you came into Star Citizen with the Chris Roberts games being Wing Commander.
Yes, so that's kind of my background. Yeah.
What's your experience so far with Star Citizen? And you can compare it to other space games, Elite, whatever kind of things. Like, what is your overall take so far?
The first thing that I think jumped out at me was how much more of a kind of hermetically sealed universe Star Citizen is than any other game I've ever played. So it's way closer to the experience of, let's say, being a person inside Star Wars or inside Star Trek. It feels so much more like a place that actually kind of matters, because all the environments are so diverse. I mean, I ended up in, I think it's Orison. Is that the one that's floating in the clouds?
Yeah,
I'm not very good on the names yet, sorry. I am learning them. That's where I started, and because it just sounded the most interesting place when I kind of clicked down the list. And I just remember being staggered that I could walk around. And I think I've got it on one of my streams where I first get into one of the little air cars that travels you around the various different locations. And the fact that I could just step off the platform, the doors open, I could walk into this transport, the doors closed behind me, and then the transport went off and I was still in it, kind of just looking around, gobsmacked. I suddenly felt this is the experience of space games that I've always wanted to have. The fact that I can just walk around and interact with the world in a way that I want to. If I don't want to catch that train, I can wait and catch the next one, and it kind of, that's cool in a way that's, it's not pew pew, it's not space combat, it's not doing a mission, it's just being there. And the sense of being there is, to me as a writer, is the sort of thing I strive to catch in a book. And so the fact the game was giving me that, to me, was a brand new experience, which I've never really come across in any game before. So that was really a powerful thing.
Nice. Anything else that kind of pops out to you from Star Citizen? I know you're a fellow Drake lover, a fellow Cutlass lover. So
yes.
What is your experience with the Cutlass so far? Because I've been interested in some of this.
I think the Cutlass, the reason the Cutlass jumped out at me the moment I started looking through the kind of entry level-ish ships was it's just got a Firefly vibe, and I absolutely adore that show. Right? Okay, so the whole shiny and let's be bad guys kind of thing. It just and I love some of the witty dialogue in that show and all that stuff. And the ship, the fact that had that rear opening hatch that just, you can punch the button on the side and it comes down, and then you climb up the hatch, you press the hatch, and the hatch closes behind you, and then you tromp off through the ship to go and do your mission. that just sold me straight away, because the fact that I felt instantly a connection with the ship. This is my old piece of junk that I'm flying through the universe, and the fact it's just got that hatch at the back, it was just brilliant. I just fell in love with that whole idea of being able to take a junky old ship, go anywhere, run some missions, and then when I want to, I can land some pretty place, lower the hatch, and just kind of chill out on the back of the ship with a barbecue, maybe. That's kind of what I've always wanted to do in a space game. It just felt so almost joyous. It's quite hard to describe, actually, the fact that I had this spaceship that actually felt like a real spaceship for the first time, because there aren't any other games that really give you that sense of just hanging around in your ship just because, for the sheer hell of hanging around in your ship. It's always a menu to another thing, or it's a menu to this, or there's limited things you can do. You can look around the cockpit, but you can't do much else. But the idea of being able to walk through the back of the ship and just chill out at the back of the ship as the ramp comes down and just there's a new alien planet, absolutely fabulous, priceless experience.
One of my favorite experiences of way of describing it, the Cutlass, is how the pilot described it, which is the Cutlass is a bastard. It'll make you fall in love with it, and you'll sit there and go like, man, this thing is so great, it can do everything, and then it just careens you into a planet as you're trying to pull out, and it's just like, nope, I'm not going to work today. And it looks like it.
It does have a few foibles, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's got character.
That's it. It's got character. Yeah.
Well, the best part about it is from the lore side of things, is the company Drake and the Cutlass itself is that's basically them. They're an outsider group that just started in the last 100 years of development. They came out with this ship that was supposed to be for the Navy, and the Navy was just like, no, and so they said, we're going to be rebel and sell it anyways, and they sold it like crazy because it was worked really well, but they basically advertised it's like too cool for the Navy, and so the Navy hates them, and every time they try to like win a contest or win a bid for the Navy contracts, Navy's just like, no, because all they do is take the Cutlass and then turn it into something different. It's like all Drake ships are just Cutlasses, but
with extra bits
or less bits. And that's what I love about Drake and overall is like, and especially the Cutlass. The Cutlass is like, it just screams, we're a small group of people who built a ship that works. Safety is not something we care about. We want you to get from point A to point B. Exposed wires, insulation, everything. It's like, whatever. You're not paying for luxury. You're paying to get to point A to point B, and we'll make sure you get there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
I like that whole old junker type feel to the ship. Yeah, it's just about holding itself together. It's got no frills. It's just a really basic gritty sort of ship. It just appeals to me. I like that.
Yeah, the ship really gives that vibe of that you're really just like living in that ship, and it's a piece of junk, but like you're like swapping things in and out. You have those wires there because you need them there because that might break down and you need quick access to it, and you just need to like keep it together so you can get from point A to point B. And that's something that like I feel like a lot of space games are just like, no, this is all clean, all new, things don't break. But Drake's taking it to like, no, this is like a mechanic's car that they're just keeping together running, and it shouldn't be running.
I would say even the audio, like when you get into an atmosphere with it, if you fly into atmosphere, you can hear it go rumble, 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 like it's just hitting the air and shaking. And the audio they have now, which sounds kind of like a rotary prop engine that comes out, just this low as the ship is shaking very slowly as it goes through. It's like, I don't know, I like it. And I've also heard that you haven't seen all the big ships yet.
No, I've seen a few of them. The Soul Citizen guys were very kind to join me on my stream the other week and give me a tour of some ships which I'm afraid I've already forgotten the name of. But there was a Caterpillar one from Drake, which was quite cool, and there was one enormous, huge thing that looked like the dropship from Aliens, which they haven't showed me the inside of yet because that would have taken like the entire stream. Apparently, that was enormous. And then an exploration vessel, which began with C. I think I can't remember. Not very up on the Carrack. That was it. Yes. So that one was lovely, and they even let me fly it, which was very, very brave of them. So some totally beautiful, different types of ship interiors. Obviously much bigger than the Cutlass Black I've been flying around in, but very, very impressive. Very, very impressive.
You should at least get someone to at least show you an 890 jump, because it's literally a space yacht, and it is the size of a space yacht. It is huge.
And also, if you take part in Xeno Threat, you would see two bigger ships from at least the outside.
Yeah. So at some point,
I should have to try that. Yeah.
give me one moment. So last question before we kind of move on to kind of more discussions, just general discussions for you, Drew, is what is your, we've got kind of initial impressions. What do you think Star Citizen does in terms of like gaming, or in terms of like the science fiction genre that makes it unique compared to other things, if anything?
What makes it unique? I think,
at least in your opinion, your experience.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think it's capturing a level of immersion that is much, that's an overused word nowadays in gaming, but it captures a level of immersion for the player looking at it that I've not experienced in any other game, even big MMOs like Elite and other things like that. The sense of, I suppose, grandeur, and also the realism and attention to detail that's in the game is unprecedented in anything else that I've ever come across. So I'm looking at it from a perspective of, the sort of things that I, as a writer, would like to see in a space game. Mm-hmm. Star Citizen is the only game that's actually managed to do that. So I'm thinking little things like the detail of how the habs where you kind of wake up, where you spawn into the game. They've got all sorts of little details like opening doors and mini fridges and occasionally working coffee machines. There's lots of little things there which as a writer I'm going, okay, that's cueing me into the universe. I'm already picking up clues as to what this universe is kind of put together. So I know there's spaceships out there. I know there's anti-gravity platforms and huge cities, but also there are some really grungy places like Grim Hex. I went to visit Grim Hex, and there's just like there's stains on the floor and dead bodies piling up and all this sort of stuff like that. And then you've got these beautiful swishy places like Area 18 and Microtech, which are all kind of smooth white and things. And so you get instantly, as a kind of writer, I'm getting the impression of, okay, so there's affluent parts here, there's seedy grungy parts. The universe is clearly not a fair place. There's some haves and there's some have-nots. So all of those little things are queuing me up as I'm watching the game to go, there's background here, there's context here, there's a story to be told. So that is a big part of it. And I think the other thing that jumps out to me constantly is the what I call the physicalization of the items that are in the game. So the idea for me that when I pick up a package from somewhere and have to deliver it, I physically have to go and get the package from somebody or a place, and then I physically have to carry it back to my ship, put it on my ship, fly my ship, pick up the package, drop it off somewhere, and kind of dispose of it. It's not just a menu on a mission giver who you could just click, mission complete, here's your credits kind of thing. It's so much more than that, and it just makes you feel like you're part of this universe, which is a big step change, I think, in gameplay. What I really like about Star Citizen, I think, is that you have to go and do the thing. You don't use a menu to do the thing. You do the thing. And the Mobiglass is a very clever way of kind of integrating that into your experience. So those are the things that really drive me as different, I think, from anything else I've played before.
If you were to, I was going to say one more thing before let's let this other question as well. But have you seen Lorville yet?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I did go to Lorville. Yes. I haven't had a good look around, but I have been there. Yeah.
One of the cool things about Lorville that if you have a chance to is notice that on the walls there are air quality alert systems where it tells you how the air quality is, and you'll see some people walking around with literally bags over their heads because they're supposed to be, and you can buy them too. They're supposed to be air filtration systems because of how bad the air quality is. So, and like the Hurstons themselves and. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think I went to one place on Lorville, and we were standing on a small kind of veranda piece overlooking the pollution, and there was a pipe above our heads which was just spewing what looked like.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I'm glad there's no smell integration in this part of the
The one of the things that like I think Lorville does a really good job of this is that if you manage to, there's actually a completely clean area of Lorville called the Central Business District, and if you manage to go there, there's these giant gold statues of one of the founders of Hurston Dynamics, the people who own the planet. And like everything's like obsidian and like smooth and different angles, and everyone's in suits, and it's super clean. And it's like, oh, so these are the people who run everything, and those are the Porschlocks who have to work in this environment. So and then like there's whole. I guess I was just say that like you can tell a lot about a universe based off just looking at it. Environmental storytelling is very, very key in Star Citizen. I think a lot of
it's very and Star Citizen is extremely good. From what I've seen so far, at signposting you an emotional context to what you're looking at. So, like you say, when you go into Grim Hex, it feels unpleasant, it feels tense, it feels unnerving in a kind of good way. But you kind of know what you expect. It's just the moment you step off and you suddenly see that the one of the vision things, I think, basically just says, it flickers and it basically just says network cable disconnected or something like that. Yeah. You just know nobody's touched that screen in like months because it's just not working. And stuff like that is really, really good at just setting a context. And then, like I say, in Microtech, everything is smooth, white and shiny, and the floors are polished, and there's holograms, and it's clearly a much more moneyed kind of place. That is very, very, very compelling. That's very, very clever narrative and design construction in my eyes, because it sets a tone and emotional vibe for the part of the game that you're playing, which I think is very, very cool.
Last thing, then we'll move on to this stuff, because I said the opposite. What would you like to see from Star Citizen in terms of ways that could increase the either the storytelling or the environment or the narrative? What would you, as a player and as somebody who's writes for a living kind of thing, what are the kind of things you'd like to see develop out of Star Citizen that aren't there yet?
I know some of these things are promised. I mean, the one thing that I always love in space games is the exploration side of things. So actually kind of hunting out new stuff and cool stuff and going to visit new bits and pieces. So obviously with the single star system at the moment, obviously that's a limitation that we all know about. Just contrasting with Elite for a moment, one of the things that is very good about Elite is that they've procedurally simulated the entire Milky Way galaxy with, say, 400 billion stars. Now, it is procedurally generated, which has its own limitations. But they have tried to do kind of good scientific principles so that you can actually kind of go to actual real places in the real galaxy, if you see what I mean, as part of your kind of exploration. Now, that is a very, very cool thing. One of the mistakes, however, I think they made with that early on with Elite is that they didn't do any pathfinding. So basically, as the game opened, the entire galaxy was open to you if you just had enough hyperspace fuel to kind of get you across and you had the patience, which meant that the first person to reach the center of the galaxy actually happened before the game officially went live. It was still in its gamma release, which I thought was a bit of a shame, because what I was hoping to see in the game was, somebody would have to pathfind the route first, and then the tourists could kind of come after, and the galaxy would slowly unravel and unlock in a kind of fog of war sort of way, and require staging points to be built and whatever to be unlocked. So what I'm kind of hoping is with Star System, as it evolves and we get more and more Star Systems, on the fringes there's going to be an opportunity for players to say, well, we want to go to the next Star System, but there's no route there right now, there's no wormhole, there's no jump gate. Can we club together and build one? Do we need to do some sort of exploration to find out where the other end of it is? And then we can slowly maybe unlock the galaxy together. That to me would feel like a real kind of pioneering exploration focused kind of thing. I'd like to see something like that. I don't know if that's all in the cards, but being able to unravel the galaxy bit by bit and piece by piece to me would be very, very appealing.
I think that's you're along with many people who've wanted the idea that because the way that travel works, and at least inter-system travel works in Star Citizen, is it's more like wormholes where there's pre-existing, and so you just kind of have to find them. But sometimes they disappear.
Yep.
So, and sometimes they're already there. Sometimes they're well trafficked. And so with a lot of people have been asking, like, as CIG adds new systems, sometimes they just say a new system is there. Good luck.
And we don't know where it is. Yeah.
Go find the wormhole. Go find the jump point, and then you'll be the first person to find it from you. So yeah, I guess that. I get
Yeah,
that.
that's very cool. Yeah. No, that's one thing. I think the other thing is being able to make your mark in the universe. One of the things I've enjoyed when I've been playing No Man's Sky, for example, is that I can land on the planet, look at the weird critters that live on this planet, and then but I can build a base. I can
Mhm.
put down a base marker, and I can say, right, I'm going to build a little homestead here while I'm just checking out this planet, and it feels like I've done something that I may never come back this way again in this procedurally generated amazing universe, but at least there's a bit of me left in the game somewhere. That I think for players, the ability to make some sort of mark on the universe is a key compelling piece of gameplay that I think Star Citizen could look at.
Awesome. All right. Now, Nick, who's been very patiently nodding around for this, we'll talk a little bit about the news this week. I'm not really going to discuss. I'll just say this ahead, to people who are wondering. I'm not really going to discuss the roadmap drama stuff right now. We'll probably address it at some point in the questions and answer session. But it's not something that I was really planning on discussing anyways. But there were some news as well. So, Nick, what are your thoughts so far on ISC? Things that stood out to you? Anything good or bad?
The good that I like to see in Inside Star Citizen, the Gravlev, the quad hover quad. I love that thing so much. Seeing it, and I'm just kind of going around. But I was kind of disappointed that they didn't say anything on where is it? When's it coming? It's in 3.16.1, but you have 3.16.1, but you still don't have it. And it's just what's going on with this? I have no idea what's going on with it. I was kind of disappointed in that end, but I kind of find it funny of oh, man, I'm just kind of rocking back and forth, and I was like, give me the hover quad.
What,
it was
did
so
you play
fun
it?
in PTU.
Did you play
it? It was
in
so
PTU?
fun in PTU. I loved it. I want it.
I heard it fits into a Titan. Does it fit into an Avenger Titan? The backside side of it?
It's tight, but yes, it does.
Ooh, okay.
It's a bit smaller than the Dragonfly lengthwise, but it's got a little bit smaller footprint than the Dragonfly, so it's in between a Nox and a Dragonfly. But
awesome.
It's good with no
shields,
no shields,
but
no
it has,
weapons.
It has cargo space.
It has cargo space, yeah.
Okay.
So it handles really well. It's fast. It handles well. It sounds like a pod racer. So I'm just give it to me. But I'm outside of that on the other part of Inside Star System, which was the refueling, which is the really big one. I think that looks great, and I think it's honestly great that they don't have a beacon for it immediately, and you're actually going to have to think about, do you want to actually give your position up to a stranger, or try to reach out to friends and everything who can try to get to you first, and actually make you think about, maybe I should be more careful with how much fuel I have so I don't lose fuel while I'm out dogfighting or anything, and then I run out, I gotta land and I gotta get refueled, or I'm out in space and I gotta get refueled. You really gotta think about if I get someone to get my position, what if they come to pirate me instead? And that's the same situation can happen with the beacon system, but the beacon system also has that reputation system built in with it, whereas reaching out into the dark, it doesn't have that reputation system, so you don't know if who's coming friendly or not, and you have to weigh the risk of do I just respawn now? Do I try another escape? Do I go with friends? Do I go with org mates before I reach out to local chat to be I'm over here, I need help, here's my location? So I think that's really good. And one thing one really small detail that I really like to see inside Star Citizen was the Moby Glass update. So the Moby Glass update, it looks super clean. It looks very clean. It looks very much nicer to what we have now. And I'm hoping that it's not just the one page of the Moby Glass that looks like that, and it's an actual just a good general rework of the Moby Glass with a mix of the new and old tech. But
because we do know we're getting a new Moby Glass update at some point this year, because they've been working on it. If anyone looks at the monthly reports, they've been talking about that significantly. So, I like the refueling, and I often regale people with this story of back in DayZ days. I was part of what it was called the Reddit Rescue Force, which was just a bunch of people who were would someone would go on to like I think it was a TeamSpeak, and they would say, "Hey, I've got a broken leg and I'm at this location. Can someone hop into my server and help me?" And it was almost always a trap. Well, about 50% was a trap, but you kind of did it anyways because it's like fun. So you would grow with other people and you'd go to that location. You'd find the person who was injured. You'd give them what they needed. You say, "Hey, you need anything else?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, no, yes or no." And then you kind of give them what you need and you move away. And I didn't play when the fuel rats were active in
I was rescued by the fuel rats personally. So
yeah.
I have experience there.
You know the fuel rats, right, Drew?
Yeah, I deliberately had to engage them as part of the lore in one of my books because I thought I need the fuel rats in the story.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually deliberately run out of fuel and then run through the process of being rescued by the fuel rats and then immortalize that in the book. So they one poor chap who I can't remember his name now, I'm afraid, but ended up being the guy who got called out to me in disguise because I didn't use my in-game name for that one, and yeah, he got immortalized in the story because he was the guy who just happened to be on duty that day and who came out and rescued me. So it's pretty cool. But it's a good service in the game.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to see with Star Citizen at some point, especially with the refueling coming in. So, and that's sort of the thing. It's partially it's you don't know if it's a trap or not, but there'll be people who will be like, "Yeah, I got you. I'll come help you out and rescue you." Taking that risk, maybe I'll have a couple of escorts with me, and I think it just. Anything that causes players to get together, anything that forces players to interact with one another, to me is a huge thing in this game. So,
and I'm sure there's going to be communities out there who are going to set up their own fuel rats for Star Citizen that will be legitimate and you can trust them.
Mm-hmm.
But on the immediate release, like it's a 50-50 shot if someone's going to try to rob you or not, and that's going to be a rush until if you don't. You're going to be on edge until they leave and you're refueled and you can fly away.
The UI is it looks great. The new UI, the new UI for refueling system, the full like it's. I'll say this: the refueling really makes me feel like it's the culmination of a bunch of other stuff that's been going on in the Star Citizen's development. It starts to feel like all of the tools they've been putting together are actually starting to work. So. From the building blocks to the different like particle physics and the gas cloud tech that they're doing and docking, all of those things are basically what we have with refueling, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Xeno Threat. Have you played it, Nick? The new Xeno Threat?
A lot. Yep.
Good, bad.
Honestly, I gotta say, outside of server performance, and just hearing contact over and over again, like mic spam, it's honestly been really good outside of the performance and the mic spam. I've been having lots of fun. I've personally just been playing solo and then just going to Rex and helping other people just load, and then going back to my Gladius and then just go fight until I see the next one. Or I'll go and clear a wreck, get it ready, and then I'll tell crew I need a cargo ship at this wreck with the Gladius parked starboard or port side, and I'll be like, and then like chat will be like, okay, we got a cargo ship coming on the way, and then I'll just like keep it there ready, and I'll get boxes moving, and it's just been fun just to solo help out. And I've still made like tons of alpha UEC to just doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I've made something like almost 1 million UEC just doing that mission. It's great fun as well, especially with other people. It feels good, but I'm also kind of at the point where I'm like, this is cool, but can it be dynamic now instead of being like you plugged it in, you know? So
I'm interested to see with the dynamics of how they do Xeno Threat in the future. So like say Pyro comes in, Xeno Threat's on the other side of Pyro, and Mike L1 is in Crusader. So what if they have a side where you could be Xeno Threat side on Pyro, and then the security civilian defense force side on the Crusader side, and then like both have like your prerequisite missions of preparation, and then the big fight in the middle by the jump gates. I mean, there's like when you start thinking like the dynamic mission system on how they can expand this and like expand missions like this, it just opens a whole can of worms of like, oh, this is going to be so good, and it could be so good within a year. And I just hope they do like, yeah.
I will say that when I last played Xeno Threat, which was, well, I guess I played it the second time it came through, but like it's been a year since Xeno Threat, because the first Xeno Threat came out around this time last year, and so this is like the third version of it, and the performance is so much better now than it used to be. I remember playing it where it's like, the spawn in of the Xeno Threat waves. It was like, oh yeah, we know they spawn because I got 3 FPS right now, and then it would eventually clear out and move their way through. But so I there's definitely some progress made there. But I definitely, like you said, I'd love to see more. Can you side with the Xeno Threat folks? Because especially if you want to live in Pyro, Xeno Threat is the main political entity that controls the Pyro system. They obviously hate the UEE, and this back and forth. I don't know. It's cool, but I want to see more. So, and if you have a chance, if you're watching this after the fact, it's live right now until Sunday. So make sure you check that out. If you're watching this on Sunday, it's probably still going on. So go to get that done.
I think the idea of being able to join a political organization in a game is actually a really cool one, because then it gives you a reason to have a barney with anybody who's not in the same political affiliation with you. So you can, if you want to role play, kind of xenophobic type of people, then that's fun to do, right? And games are all about that kind of escapism and doing things that you probably wouldn't do in real life. So if you want to, join a sort of morally ambiguous bunch of guys and just go around, slaughtering people, that's a cool thing to be able to do. And then, but you can expect then other people to try and counter you who want to role play a kind of, a more sort of, kind of traditional, maybe democratic kind of role. I think that's really good if you can actually pledge your loyalty to a cause, and then they will give you missions, and and there's consequences, because then the mission system can then give you, as your reputation builds, better missions and more lucrative, difficult stuff. But of course, if you want to build a reputation with the other side, then you can't, because clearly you're kind of double crossing, and then you're a traitor, and then maybe that busts your reputation with both sides. So unless you actually have a really, really cool way of becoming a double agent, all those sort of things, it could be quite good fun.
Yeah, that's the reputation system. That's I think the end goal of the reputation system, which is interesting with Star Citizen, because that's the one thing I think a lot of people don't realize, is that right now there is criminal and non-criminal sides, and eventually they're probably going to get away with that, go away with that. So it's less of a criminal non-criminal side and more of who have you really pissed off, and who likes you, and if someone likes you, you may have pissed off somebody else, because there's no way that this these sides will like each other. And that's kind of a refreshing idea in a gaming universe where you have like Skyrim. It's just one of those things that always drove me nuts. It's like, oh yeah, you can be the leader of the Thieves Guild and the Assassins Guild and the Mages Guild, and the you can be leader of every single one, including the sides that should be opposing one another, but you're the leader of all of them now. It's like, I don't like that. Making
sense, does it? No. The League made that mistake as well, because you can do missions for the Imperials and become a king, I think is their highest rank. And you could do missions for the Federation and become kind of vice admiral in charge of this, that, and the other, even though at the same time
they're in conflict with one another.
That doesn't make sense. If you're high up in one organization, surely you're going to be a liability, or at least an assassination target for the other one. That would make more sense, and that's not how it unfortunately is at the moment.
Yeah, so that's what I'm hoping for as well, because the thing about Pyro as well is that Pyro is it is a I think the best way of describing Pyro. Pyro is where people go who don't want to be part of the UEE, which isn't, always exactly good. They're kind of an oligarchy. So they're not really democratic, because you have to kind of earned your keep within the empire in order to get your status of a citizen, which means that you can to vote. Often that means serving the military, which in times of war means you're gonna die probably, or have a high chance to. And so it's that kind of give and take. And there's a lot of people in the Star Citizen universe who just don't want to be part of it. So they've kind of fled to the different systems which aren't claimed by the UEE, because the UEE doesn't have enough economic value for them to claim it. Pyro being one of them. And so Pyro is this kind of land of many gangs. So there's just small pockets of more like small nations that are kind of controlling different regions and are vying over the different resources that are possible. So it'll be very interesting to see the change. People react to the change from being like, oh, I am a lawful character, I am an unlawful character, to, oh, I help these guys because they're running. Why am I getting attacked by everybody else? It's like, because none of them like each other. Get
That's
used
right,
to
yeah,
it. You know,
you'll find the
I was
wrong
just
flag.
walking through town, and then this gang just jumped up on me. I don't know why. It's like, well, who'd you piss off? It's like, oh, I helped this guy out, and it's like, oh yeah, they don't like him.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's one of those things.
That's a really nice kind of anarchic kind of thing, because it means that any choices you make in the game have consequences. And I think in any game, if the player, by doing the things that they do, maybe early on, not necessarily even with full knowledge of what the repercussions might be, have consequences later on for them to go, damn, I really shouldn't have done that shipment to that dodgy planet right at home, because now I'm in trouble with the Navy or whatever it happens to be. That's a really cool thing if you can do it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I see CIG's trying to do, and it's one of those things where I it's kind of a refreshing kind of change, in the sense that I think it's going to require players to know the lore in a weird way, which which
you're a researcher, where the hell you're going first. That's right.
Who am I taking this mission from? Because if I take the wrong mission from the wrong person, then I may end up the home that they've made. It's right now players are so much looking at just like the money, and one of the things I always like to, like, there's a example that I should put out, which is you get a mission to do a high lucrative job in ArcCorp. You do it, you make your money, you're good. You head back to Grimhex, where you're home, and they refuse you. They basically tell you to piss off. You're not welcome anymore. And you get confused, and what you didn't realize is the mission you took was from Tizia Pacheco, who is the leader of the Otoni Syndicate, who has been moving into the area and trying to muscle in on all of the illegal activities. And there's another syndicate which has been in the Stanton system for a longer time, which is headquartered out of Grimhex, backed up by the Nine Tails, who don't like Tizia and the Otoni Syndicate. So if you did this big job, you got a lot of money, but then you ruined your reputation with your hometown, and now they're just like, you literally just murdered a lieutenant from the Nine Tails. We're not going to let you land here anymore. What do you think this is? Which again, to me, it makes it more interesting because it makes you think. It makes you think. You sit there and go, yeah, that's a lot of money, but who's giving it to me?
Yeah. Oh, and why is it so much money? Because that sounds incredibly generous for maybe what's not such a it's the thing. It's too good to be true. It probably is too good to be true, or at least there's some strings attached that you may not have realized. And like you say, it encourages people to get into the lore. And if you've got a rich amount of lore and a way to access it, and those are the two things that you need to have. You have to have the lore in the first place, but you've also got a way to be able to get at the lore in a gamey kind of way, rather than just I mean, I love Wikipedia pages about the lore, and I'll go through those, but not everybody can do that. You need to be able to get the gist of it in the game somehow, either by overhearing conversations in the bar or snippets of things that show up. On the way to the mission, you go, I pity those poor guys who have got that mission to ArcCorp, because I wouldn't want to be in their shoes when they get caught. Things like that get dumped into your. You go, oh damn.
Yeah.
And then you can go, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. All that sort of stuff is really, really powerful. It gives and it brings the lore alive, because the lore can be quite dry if you don't fill it full of interesting little bits and pieces, and making that work in the game is a real skill. But it looks like they're trying really hard to do that.
Yeah, and I would say that's the one thing that they're lacking, in my opinion, right now, is that whole contextual. There's a lot of lore, but it's all on websites and it's locked in behind a bunch of different other things. It's hard to research. It's not even in a wiki format. It's like an off reference in a release, like essentially a transcript of a video that doesn't exist. That's just like a lore bit that's supposed to be like this show that everyone watches in the universe, and you're supposed to pick that up to understand that this imperator didn't do so well with this situation. It's like, people like me, I'm down with it, but the average person won't know about that or care about that. Like, put it in the game somewhere, and to make it give that contextual, so that people aren't just, oh yeah, they have the chance to. Like, someone's like, hey, don't listen to Tizia, don't listen to Tizia, don't listen to Tizia. They took the mission and they said, what did we tell you? Don't listen to her, but you did it anyways. But they have to have to know that sort of thing. So
I'm hoping they add in something like Galnet, from Elite Dangerous,
Mhm.
where it's like sort of like the new show, but in Star Citizen with the FOIP and everything.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but I knew there's news fans and everything, so I'm hoping they do actual like in-game like news stories, and they just paste it over like news bulletins on TVs inside the transits and
That would
stuff.
be cool. Yeah.
And
And
just so you can get the news of like what's happening right now inside the verse.
yeah, the Galnet was actually a very good part of Elite Dangerous, and in fact, the previous version of Elite, which was a game called Frontier First Encounters back in the 90s, actually had multiple newspapers. Now, I think there were 5 different newspapers in the game, and so you'd get when an event happened. It was only a single player game, so this might be a harder thing to translate to an MMO style universe. But what they had was they had a federal newspaper, they had an imperial newspaper, they had a kind of I don't know, kind of sensationalist newspaper that just printed junk. They had a kind of techno scientist newspaper, and these basically when you did something in the universe, these papers would comment on it in with their slant. So there was no, this is the truth. This is the Federation would say, dastardly, underhanded villains have destroyed the XYZ on the planet Y, whereas the Imperial one would say heroic Imperial agents have managed to, smuggle back an artifact that was stolen from us by the Federation. The sensationalist one would basically say something like, some crazy stuff about, personal ads and things like that. And then the technical one would give you some more detailed background lore stuff about what was actually going on that you could possibly trust, but they weren't on the ball with all the kind of political shenanigans going on. So there was things like that. Multiple sources, but not all of them trustworthy, or at least not trustworthy on the same level. So you kind of got right wing, left wing kind of newspapers commenting on events. That can be quite cool as well.
Everything said the bit of truth, but never gave the whole story.
Exactly. So you had to kind of, where do I sit on this one? Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's it's hard to say this, but we've already been recording for almost an hour. So we're going to stop this session. We're going to move into the question and answer session. That was actually, I didn't feel like an hour. I just say that. So,
Wow.
yeah. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, we're going to just kind of take a quick break and then move right on to the questions and answers. So you'll watch this question and answer later. And the next day afterwards. If you're watching this on Twitch, ask questions. Use the little coin icon. You can ask questions to me, to either Nick or to Drew, to all of us in combined. Just trying to make it something that we can answer, or you want to hear us from, make it interesting. And like I said, make sure you're following Nick. Make sure you're watching him live on Twitch. Make sure you're watching Drew and buy his book. This is the first time I've had to say that on Captain's Table. Buy his books.
He makes things. Go get them.
Yes. And I have had multiple people who have been in my chat and in my community have said that like your books are the best part of Elite Dangerous, and your contributions are the best parts of Elite Dangerous. So,
Excellent.
So you look up the Drew Wager on Amazon or on the Elite store, the Frontier store, or any of that kind of stuff. So buy all of the books. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.